Warning. This episode contains frank discussions of race and racism that some may find challenging to listen to. Listener discretion is advised. But it also contains stories of overcoming challenges that some may find to be inspiring. Enjoy.
On this episode of Race, Health, and Happiness, Dr. O speaks with Celina Caesar-Chavannes, mental health advocate and former member of Canadian Parliament, about her journey to finding her place at the professional table, the importance of showing up for herself and her community, and how she learned to tap into the strength of her inner child.
3-year-old Celina. She used to stand at the top of her stairs and sing Rod Stewart, "If you want my body and you think I'm sexy." And when I think back to how fierce and bold that little girl was, it was her that has been the little powerhouse inside of Celina all this time.
The Race, Health, and Happiness podcast is hosted by Dr. Onye, certified public health physician specialist and family doctor. The views expressed by Dr. O's guests are their own and do not necessarily represent her opinions or those of the podcast. Check out the show notes for more details. And now, here's Dr. O.
Hi, and welcome to my podcast, Race, Health, and Happiness. We live in a world where Black, Indigenous, and other people of color are more and more aware of the blatant and subtle ways that systemic racism impacts our lives. As a doctor, I'm interested in how that affects people's health. This podcast is about how to stay healthy and happy despite all that noise. My guest is a perfect example of someone who is skilled at overcoming barriers as a Black woman. She is Celina Caesar-Chavannes, an elected member of the federal legislature of Canada. She represented the electoral riding of Whitby, which is a suburban community just outside of Toronto. And she was first elected in 2015 as part of the Liberal Party, and they ended up forming the federal government. But she left the Liberal Party in early 2019, becoming an independent member, and then decided not to pursue re-election. She decided to be true to herself, her wellness, and her principles. In fact, Ms. Caesar-Chavannes has fearlessly spoken up about a wide range of topics, including her experiences tackling racism and issues of mental health. She is an accomplished person, a mother, a successful entrepreneur with 2 MBAs, and an advocate. Celina, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. That was an introduction.
Well, thank you, because I'm excited. I want us to go straight into the early years of your journey. And so I was thinking about your superpower. So it is clearly your passion to speak truth to power. And so I was wondering, where does that come from? In your own journey, in your own pathway, where does that speaking truth to power, where did it start?
I would say that my superpower, my ability to speak truth to power started with 3-year-old Celina. 3-year-old Celina used to stand at the top of her stairs and sing Rod Stewart, "If you want my body and you think I'm sexy." And it was one of those things where I could actually see myself with my birthday suit singing that. And, over the years, my journey hasn't been, 3-year-old Celina singing naked at the top of the stairs to being in Parliament. It has been a lot of ups and downs, but I would say that when I think back to how fierce and bold that little girl was, she's always been there. I think sometimes you forget that she could show up, right? And times in my life I've forgotten where she was. But when I look back, it was her that has been the little the little powerhouse inside of Celina all this time.
That's a really funny image at the top of the stairs, just
Belting
singing.
it out.
Yeah, belting it out.
And Rod Stewart of all this.
And so how was it with for your parents, with you being this fearless, outspoken Rod Stewart singer?
So I think 3-year-old Celina singing Rod Stewart was the definition of sort of the boldness, but I was also 3-year-old Celina that was saying all the bad words. Celina who was playing kissing tag in the middle of the courtyard with the boys. The Celina who was doing all of those things that, you shouldn't have been doing because you're supposed to be a nice little girl and sit quietly. And I didn't do that. But I was also really smart. So in my grades were my shining moments, right, where I bring home all straight A's. And that for me was something that, as much trouble as I got into, you couldn't touch me because I have my grades.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
With immigrant parents, if you have that,
Yeah.
you're golden. You can get away with stuff.
Anything. And then you come home with that straight A, and it's like, child, you're really a good child, It's like, no, I'm not. I know I'm not a good kid.
And I think that's what, a lot of immigrant parents, because they come to, it could be this country in Canada or any country with aspirations for themselves, but also their children. Yeah. And sometimes they face, a lot of challenges. So they kind of invest a lot. Like you must, really work hard.
Right.
Were you able to observe any challenges that your parents were facing during that time? I know you were young when they immigrated, but,
I saw them struggle with a lot of things too. I mean, I remember my dad coming home and looking sad in a way when he worked for another company, and he eventually went on to own his own business. And I remember him coming home and being at the kitchen table and just watching this, and it was in Rexdale, so I must have been about 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, wow, okay.
And just watching him have this sadness, and I know it wasn't because he got cut or bruised, or I know it wasn't like a personal thing, like a death in the family, but there was something that made him really sad. And he was talking about the way people were treating him.
At work?
At work. And I thought to myself, I never want to experience that sadness. I was afraid of it.
What did you take from that, or what was your understanding about what was happening?
Right.
Was he experiencing racism, or was it a cultural change?
Right. So that's
to Canada?
exactly what it was. He was experiencing racism, or I just didn't know that was the word. I just know that I did not want to be impacted by whatever was making my father so sad.
Was kind of owning your own business, I don't know if it was for him, but was it for you kind of a bit of a way of kind of staking out your own independence, or a way to not be put in the situation where you saw your father having that look on his face of being an employee and experiencing racism?
So I'm not sure I'm that smart to have connected all those dots already. But it's when you look back over your life that you could see how well you've connected dots that you didn't know existed, right? But I didn't do so well in university. Ended up taking 6 years to finish a 3-year degree. Fell in love with research, and then started to think, okay, I'll do a research assistant, then research coordinator. Did my first MBA, wanted to be a research manager, sent out 732 applications because you're supposed to put them in the little box.
Wait, sorry. I know you just kind of
sailed right through it.
732.
732, because you put them in the little inbox, right? You file them in, and then you're supposed to follow up with each person to say, hey, did you get my resume? So all of those were in the little inbox, 732 applications in some research area. This is me with an MBA now. My first one's done. And I put them in there, and I got 4 interviews, 2 second interviews, 0 jobs, because you're overqualified or you don't have managerial experience.
Overqualified or underqualified? That is
Yes.
a common issue
Yes.
for Black, Indigenous,
Yes.
racialized people.
Yes.
Thank you.
Don't have the experience. Sorry. Well, how am I supposed to get the experience if you don't give me the job? Well, you can't get the job. So my gut's telling me, start your own business. And I'm like, no, I have, excuse me, universe, are you listening? I have an MBA. I am supposed to get a managerial job. This is what you do with them. And I couldn't land one. And so I was forced into, hey, let's start this business. Let's start this research management firm. And it wasn't sort of the entrepreneurial thing that I saw my dad, and it was forced. Like, I needed to get money. I needed to make money, and I'm a hustler, baby. You need to be able to do that. You've been taught to be able to do that. Twice as good, twice as hard. So you have to find a way to make a way out of no way. And so there you go.
So you did.
So I did.
Okay. So then, at the beginning I mentioned you have 2 MBAs, Celina. So can you tell us the story of how that occurred?
Why? So yeah, 2 MBAs is really, it's actually, so when I started my company, which was Resolve Research Solutions, started in 2005, and I didn't put, so I'm going to have to go back and forward a little bit.
No, that's okay.
I didn't put my name or my face or anything, any identifiable features about myself out on the internet, because I owned a research management company. I didn't want to have to deal with people saying, I don't want to work with a woman, and I don't want to work with a Black woman, and I don't want to work with a young person, right?
Right.
I still consider myself young. I look at, so
Yes.
I might as well.
Yes.
So I didn't want to have to deal with all of those issues, so I didn't put myself visibly out there. It was just the
Okay.
company and the logo and the brand was what I was selling. And I wouldn't show up to see clients until we've already had a fully executed agreement. You making money, I'm making money. And then whatever color we are, we just focusing on green, right?
Okay.
And so I didn't do that. Fast forward a few years, I won the 2007 Harry Jerome Young Entrepreneur. I won the Toronto Board of Trade Entrepreneur of the Year, 2012. People see who I am. I cannot hide anymore. And so 10 years in to the company, I'm thinking, or, my company's approaching the 10-year mark around 2015. And I'm thinking, good grief, I want to take the company international, or I want to maybe go into corporate and leave it for a little while. What do I do? And I think I'll get another MBA. Or I went to do a PhD and I dropped out of it. And I needed something to mask who I was. So I think, in my mind, you could get past the fact that you're going to work with a Black person and a woman if she's a doctor.
So that's why you did the PhD.
That's how I wanted to do the PhD. Yes.
Okay.
Unpack that a little bit.
Right.
Why do you drop out of a PhD program, Celina? Because I felt like I couldn't do it. I just felt like I wasn't as smart as the other people in the class. And the imposter syndrome just started like eating away at me. Even though I'd accomplished so much, I just thought I couldn't do it. But there has to be a time when you reflect on why that is the case. Why, Celina, did you do so poorly in university? Why did you drop out of a PhD program? What if they accepted you, it means that you were good enough. Now you're going to turn around and tell them that you're not. What is your problem? And so it takes time to unpack that. And for each person, it's different. And it's not right or wrong. It's just different, right? And I needed to remove myself from that for whatever reasons the universe thought that I needed to do that. And I did my second MBA.
I see. Okay. So then can you tell us how then you decide to become, engaged in politics? Because on the one hand,
that part.
There's the classroom where you felt like, I need to step out of here. And then, this moment where you decide to step up into an entirely different, leave the business world and enter
politics. Yes. So drop out of the PhD program, start my executive MBA here at U of T at Rotman. And December of 2013, there's a politics component of the course where the professor is talking about political capital and how you could use your business skills to be politically savvy and figure out policies, how policies could change to help your business grow and, connections made and things like that. And I'm just thinking, man, how do I get some of that? I want that political capital. I want to be able to use those skills that I've learned in business and research and apply them to policy. I've been doing this, for most of the work that I've done in research. And so I decided at that point to become a member of a political party. So for the first time in my life, became a member of the Liberal Party. I voted Liberal in February of 2014. So a couple months later, decided to become a member. And when you become a member, they send you all of these solicitation emails. I get one that says, invite her to run. Do you know a woman who will be interested in running in the next federal election and is smart and courageous and has these great ideas? And I was like, hell yeah. Me. And then the 3-year-old Celina showed back up and we were like, yes, we could do this now. And so I decided to just run. So nobody asked me, nobody flew across the country. I was just like, Google, how do you run in a political campaign? Search. Oh, and you get all the information.
Wow. Okay. So now, many of us know you as as I mentioned at the beginning, this voice around like mental health issues, the marginalized Black community. So did you enter with like this lens of change, or
No.
how did that come about?
No, so I'll try to keep this story really brief. But when I went into my swearing-in ceremony, I knew I was different. I knew. I mean, I'm not Celina Resolve Research where I could hide myself. I'm now a public figure. I am the only dark chocolate woman out of 338 people in that place. There is no hiding. So I show up at my swearing-in ceremony in this, faux leather dress, my faux fur, my heels. Like I'm not wearing the suit thing. I'm gonna show up because they're gonna talk about me anyway, right? So I might as well give them something to talk about. So I show up and I'm in this room with this huge portrait of the Fathers of Confederation above my head as my hands on the Bible, and I'm recording my name into history. And that moment was the burden of that responsibility was so heavy. I carried it for at least 2 years as this heaviness, as this, oh my God, this place was never designed for women, let alone me. So how am I going to survive here? And it became heavier and heavier and heavier, and it weighed on me. It weathered me. I would come home and say, Vidal, this job is killing me. And there's a lot of other things that happened too. And then the moment I realized that burden was not a heaviness, it was a love for my community, a love for that 3-year-old self, a love for the one that kept all the secrets and didn't say what I was supposed to say, and was sort of beat up all over the years. It was a love, a responsibility to speak up, to give back, to say, to talk about why do you need to be twice as good and twice hard and not take care of yourself? How is that sustainable? What do you mean, why am I here? Like I'm not an elected official. What, because you're not used to seeing the Black girl in charge? You're asking me questions? No, I need to talk about this, not just for me, but for all the people that feel the burden, not of that picture, but of everyday living. They can't fire me. They couldn't fire me for 4 years, so why not talk and say things for people that if they do talk, they will get fired? You know what I mean? That's my responsibility, and I love my people. So I'm gonna talk. I'm going to say the things that I know are weighing on them.
And I mean, I love, so you definitely talked about so many different issues that touched people in many different ways, and speaking on race, but also speaking on mental health, because actually you talk about that intersection, right? That piece of working twice as hard and how it takes a toll on a person's health. There's good evidence that actually does lead to mental health consequences. So when you decided to speak out on these issues, I'm curious about your process of getting that 3-year-old Celina to kind of move into that space. So let's start with the working twice as hard and just thinking about mental health, because I think that resonated with people from various different backgrounds, right? So that is something that many people and all of us are facing in society, either directly affected by it or family members or friends. So how did that come about you speaking about your experience?
Right, so between 2013, deciding I'm going to run, and the general election, I was in a by-election because the member of parliament who lived in Whitby passed away. And after losing the by-election, I went into a massive depression. I didn't get out of bed or do anything for 2 months. And when I was elected before World Suicide Prevention Day, it was going to start storming in Ontario. Like, seriously, the rain was going to fall, lightning and stuff.
Like literal storm.
Like literal storm. And so I posted on Facebook, the storm is coming in, know that I've been there, and this will pass, and you'll be okay, and that it's okay to not be okay. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. And I said, hashtag World Suicide Prevention Day. And a journalist saw it and said, can you blog about this, write a blog? And I just wrote about my experience in those first couple months after the by-election, just really having a hard time. And the amount of people that it resonated with had me speaking, but there was two people that really impacted me the most. The first was a Black woman, an elderly woman, who came to me and said, thank you for speaking, because I didn't know what was wrong with me. Because depression and anxiety don't present as people crying all the time. Their mood is affected. Their motivation is affected. And so speaking and giving examples of what I was experiencing connected with her in a way that nobody had articulated before. And then the second thing was a woman who said, thank you, Celina, for talking. But if I talk about this, I could lose my job, and I'm afraid I could lose my kids. And it's the intersection of both of those that say, okay, enough. Enough now. This is not sustainable for us to continue to work this way. We need to show up for each other. We need to talk about things so that you could get help, but also so that the village could show up too. And the village could help.
Yes.
We don't have a choice anymore but to speak up.
What are some of the things that you have noticed in your own journey as far as overcoming? Like, what are some tips and tricks we can send to, young Black women, Black men, but also, so many other youth experiencing either racism or things that are making them feel like other? You know what I mean? Like, what are some things that through this journey you have, some nuggets, let's say, of things you have picked up for overcoming?
So I'm going to be real cliche with this answer, but when you look at things from an intersectional lens, so race, including Indigenous, gender, sexuality, or disability, religion, ageism, we cannot continue to talk about diversity being in our strength, because diversity is ubiquitous. Like, you look on the campus, it's everywhere. The factor that is going to make or break us is our ability to include, to be truly inclusive. Why do we need to still choose gendered bathrooms? Why do people still not have adequate drinking water? Why can't I show up with my braids? Why can't I do this? And so all of these microaggressions, overt racism, ways in which people are meant to feel like other, needs to stop. And so how do you do that? How are you able to get into those spaces? You need to show up authentic. We can't continue to hide ourselves in spaces and yet want the space to change to accommodate our natural selves if we're not our authentic selves. And this goes from being, being ladylike, you can't laugh out loud. Well, the first person that's going to laugh out loud is me. You got to be able to show up authentically in spaces and put your hand up and not be afraid to put your hand up. And then show up together. We got to decide what we want to do. And the first thing is to show up as authentically who we are. And the second thing is to show up as the village, all of us.
I'm like speechless right now, because that was just so in line with what I have been experiencing and observing. It is scary though. It is scary sometimes. I'm thinking about, like, for young people, like, just being a young person can be just challenging, trying to figure out who you are. And when you're trying to come into places and spaces and be authentic, it can take a knock to your sense of not just your well-being, but even your self-confidence, because you're trying to figure out your voice. But I think where we are doing those two parts that you said, like we show up as our
Yes.
authentic selves,
Yes.
but then are supporting each other in that village,
Yes.
then there is that potential. And also, I
Yes.
wonder if there is, where you talk about all these different intersectionalities and all of these different issues, then recognizing the other villages as well. Like there's so many different villages and sub-villages.
Yes.
If everybody were able to come as their authentic selves and be included and be celebrated, imagine. And so I really just have, one last question for you. When it comes to wellness, I mean, earlier you said, you can, when you talked about owning your own business and as a Black woman and a young person, and, kudos for looking young, as you yourself recognize, but I also, y'all can't see her, but I recognize as well. What is your approach to wellness? And I'm assuming it comes from the inside out. So where I make a statement on the outside, I'm really thinking about the full wellness and well-being.
So there's a couple of things that I do, and I'll start from the inside and then work my way out. So number one, I have depression and anxiety, so I do take my medication. I do meditation. I exercise. I eat well. I will walk. I will park my car far and walk for the events that I have this evening. I've walked all the way through Ottawa. So I need to make sure that I'm healthy on the inside. Then when you come to the outside, 3-year-old Celina shows up every morning because I don't leave my house. I come out of the shower and I appreciate me. Without the filters, like we're in a real Instagram weird world where you got to filter everything out, or you're constantly looking at yourself and jiggling your arms or saying you need to nip and tuck things. And, we want to show up in spaces and have people be confident in us. And we can't stand in front of our bedroom mirror and have confidence in ourselves. So that's kind of tricky. You can't occupy the space and want people to value you, and you can't occupy your space, meaning your body, and value yourself. So I do that in the morning to say, not to do those I am great, I am good affirmations. Those are great. Those are great. And people that do them. But I actually stand and look at myself and say, all day. So amazing.
All day.
Yeah, all day. And then I'll get myself ready. And I think that sort of armor allows you, it's a different kind of armor. It's not, I'm afraid that something's going to hit me. It's, I'm good today. I'm real good. And so I'm able to go out and do stuff. And then outside, I have fun. I do. Like this whole time in politics, I'd be very careful of people not recording me at parties. But I fed the whole time.
Oh, I've seen you. I said, hey, yes, YASSSS.
Yeah, so what, you lose pieces of yourself because you can't, politicians don't drink. And like, I have a glass of wine. What am I supposed to hide it every picture? I actually tried hiding it in one picture by putting it behind my back instead of getting it on the table because the camera was coming. And it fell down the whole back of my dress. So now when the picture comes, yes, I'm having a glass of wine. Are you okay with that? Because I am. And
everybody else at the party.
Everybody else at the party. And again, it goes back to that being your authentic self. I like soca, I like fetting, so I'm going to do that. And so I'm going to have fun. I'm going to go 100 when I'm at work, but I'm also going to go 100 in the fet.
100 in the fet.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, if one does go 100 in the fet, how will one not be well? That is wellness.
Right. But you need to take that, you need to do that for yourselves. And I think it's part of that conversation where we say, go twice as hard, twice as whatever. How do we then, understanding that that's not a sustainable model to living, what are we supposed to tell the next generation? We could keep telling them what my mother told me, work twice as hard, twice as whatever. But we also have to tell them, and take care of yourself. And give yourself a break every now and again. And don't be so hard on yourself. And all these things that help you, if you need to, because we may still need to do that. This isn't a utopia as yet. But we'll still need to do those things. But then we need to have the ands. where yes, you're going to see Celina show up at the fete. And when they do, it's like, why are you here? Like, man, I get asked that every day at work. Now you're going to ask me why I'm here at the fete.
You're at the fete.
Here for the same reason you feel.
You
Pass
hear
me a
that?
drink. Let's go.
Yes, you hear that when Celina shows up at the fete.
Yeah, don't ask me no questions.
Don't
What
ask no
happens in the
questions.
party stays at the party. Yes.
All parties are Vegas. All right. All right. Well, yes, I think that is a great recipe for wellness, and I'm actually gonna take some of those tips. So thank you very, very much. So y'all better be ready for me at the next Soca Jam. I'm showing up. Don't ask Dr. O no questions either. All right. Thank you, Celina. Thank you. When I think of Celina Caesar-Chavannes, I think of a woman who is not afraid to be herself and express her truth to the world. But it took time for Celina to get to where she is, and she continues to evolve and develop her superpowers, her gifts, just like the rest of us. There are 2 key life and wellness lessons that I got from spending time with her. Number 1, the importance of showing up with authenticity and understanding that it is not easy. It's an ongoing negotiation between yourself and the world, and that changes over time. And number 2, when you do show up as your authentic self and it goes well, you are opening up doors for others coming up behind you and for them to feel safe being themselves. This can contribute to the well-being of the village, whatever your village might be. For Celina, whether it was showing up as the 3-year-old singing and dancing at the top of the steps in her birthday suit, or speaking up as a member of parliament on racism and mental health, there is courage in that, and self-determination. Self-determination is the process by which a person controls their own life, and it is a factor that influences health and well-being. Check out the show notes for literature on minority stress, which is when minority groups feel pressured to behave and speak differently to fit into dominant culture. And the flip side of that, the benefits of self-determination, which involves speaking and living your truth. This is Dr. O signing off and wishing you health and wellness on your journey.
The Race, Health, and Happiness podcast was created by Dr. Onye, and she's our host. The show is produced, written, and edited by yours truly, Dr. Carl Cabasel. Our technical producer is Obadiah George. Associate producer is Shamipe Oni. Original music and our theme song composed and performed by Gold Keys. If you're looking for a little slice of audio happiness, you can check out his music on Spotify and YouTube, or just Google him. That's Gold Keys, all one word, ending with a Z. Do you have questions, feedback, ideas to share? We'd love to hear from you. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at RaceHealth&Happy, and check out the show notes for research that was referenced in this episode, as well as other bonus material. Our website is RaceHealth&Happy.com. Thank you for listening to Race, Health, and Happiness, and please subscribe to us anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. I'm Dr. Carl Cabasel, and we'll talk to you soon.